Question, my leading ladies. What if the relationship ended, but the pattern didn't? What if you changed the person, change the environment, change the season, maybe even change your phone number? But somehow you're still carrying the same version of yourself into what comes next. Maybe you still over explaining yourself, still trying to keep everybody happy, still afraid to disappoint people, still feeling responsible for everybody else's emotions, still giving more than you receive, still silencing yourself to keep the peace. And also, you've been telling yourself, I've moved on. But have you healed though? Because those are not always the same thing. Have you healed? Moving on and being healed are two different things. And that's what I want us to talk about today. Not just how to move on, but how to heal forward. Because sometimes the relationship changes, but the pattern follows us. And if we don't recognize it, we can walk into a completely new season carrying an old emotional blueprint. So pour yourself something warm, something hot, a nice cup of tea. Get comfortable because today we're about to talk about it. I'll see you right here in the Royal Courts in a few minutes.
Get ready for the RoyalTEA Talk Show with host Portia Basham, the podcast designed for women who are looking to be inspired, motivated, and encouraged. Whether you're just starting out in your career or raising a family, the RoyalTEA Talk Show has something for you. This is your opportunity for empowerment and affirmation. Get blessed with amazing stories from women of all walks of life who want to share their truths and victories and impact the lives of women everywhere. This is your cordial invitation to join us as we sip tea, chat, and empower each other on the RoyalTEA Talk Show and podcast with your host, Portia Basham.
Welcome to the RoyalTEA Podcast, the place where faith meets real life and we have honest conversation about things that women are thinking, feeling, navigating, and sometimes struggling to put into words. So I am your host, Dr. Portia Basham, and around here we believe some conversations aren't just meant to make you feel better, but they are meant to help you see differently, heal deeply, and move forward intentionally. So grab your cup of tea, baby girl, settle down, and let's get into our royalty talk for today. So today's conversation is one thing many women are going to recognize themselves within. We're talking about what happens when a relationship changes, but you discover that some of the patterns that you developed inside that relationship is still very much alive. And when I say relationship, I don't just mean a romantic relationship. Yes, this could be a marriage. It could be a friendship. It could be a relationship with your mother, with your father, your siblings, your adult children, someone in the church, someone you worked with, someone you love deeply, or maybe nobody technically left. Maybe the relationship simply changed. You're not as close anymore. The dynamics of the relationship shift, your role change, your family change, your children has grown up. Something happened that made you realize this isn't what it used to be. The transition like that could be difficult because we don't just lose people. Sometimes we lose a role, we lose routines, we lose expectations, we lose the future we thought we were going to have, and maybe we lose the version of ourselves. And so today, I don't want to spend this conversation talking about the why did they do that, or why did this happen, or why couldn't they love me differently? No, these questions may be valid, but there is another question that maybe actually might change our life. What about that question? What did this relationship reveal in me though? Because moving on changes, kind of changes your circumstances. When we move on, it changes our circumstances. But does it heal though? Because healing is what changes our patterns. When we move on, it changes our circumstances. But when we go through a healing, that changes our patterns. So here's what happens sometimes. The relationship ends or changes, and eventually you start functioning again. You go to work, you take care of your family again, you laugh again, you take pictures. Hey, you go out. You productive, you handling your business, and everybody says, oh my God, she's doing good. And maybe you are, but privately, you still replaying those conversations in your mind. You're still wondering what should have been said, what could have been done, what you could have done, why this, why they didn't understand me, why I stayed in this relationship so long, why you allowed certain things, or why you kept showing up when you were even exhausted. And yes, the relationship is gone, but some of the behaviors you developed inside is still there. You're still afraid to say no. You're still over-explaining yourself. You're still trying to make sure everybody is okay before you ask yourself whether I'm okay. You're still taking responsibility for things that were never yours to carry, my leading ladies. You're still apologizing for having needs. You're still shrinking part of yourself because somewhere along the way you learned that if I become too much, somebody might leave. Or if I say what I really feel, there will be conflict. Or if I stop doing everything, people won't need me anymore. And here is where it gets uncomfortable, my leading lady. Sometimes what feels like personality is actually a pattern. I'm just a strong one. Maybe. But when did you learn that you weren't allowed to need help though? I'm just a giver. Yeah, that's nice. But do you know how to receive though? I just don't like conflict. Okay. But is it peace that you value, or are you afraid of what might happen if somebody becomes unhappy with you? You see, this is where healing requires honesty, not condemnation, not shame, honesty. Because sometimes we are grieving more than a relationship. We're grieving a version of ourselves that learned how to survive inside it. So I want you to think about this for a minute. Who did you learn to become in order to keep certain relationships afloat? You want me to repeat that question for you? Who did you learn to become in order to keep certain relationships afloat? Did you become the fixer? Did you become the peacemaker? Did you become the strong one? Did you become the rescuer? Did you become the responsible one? The one everyone calls, or the one who never asks for anything. Oh yeah, baby girl, you could count on her. She's not going to ask you for anything. The one who always understands everybody else. The one who forgives without ever addressing what really happened. You know what? It's okay. It's all right. Yes. The one who keeps giving another chance after another chance after another chance. The one who says it's okay when it actually wasn't okay. And sometimes we play those roles so long that we stop realizing that they are roles. We start calling them our identity. But my leading ladies, hear me with your good air. A role you learn to survive in does not have to become an identity you live in forever. That's important. Because sometimes we think time is going to heal everything. And yes, time can give you distance. Time can reduce emotional intensity. Time can give you perspective. But time alone doesn't automatically change patterns. You can spend 5 years away from a relationship and recreate the same dynamic with somebody new. Different face, different name, different circumstances, but same emotional pattern. And that's why we have to go deeper than how do I get over what happened? Sometimes the better question you got to ask yourself, my leading ladies, is what did what happened taught me to become? And do I still need to be that kind of person? What did it teach me? Who did it teach me to become? And do I still need to be that person? So before we go deeper, I want you to take a quick royalty break. So if you are a coach, if you are an author, if you're an entrepreneur, a ministry leader, expert, or woman with a message that deserves a larger audience, I want you to hear this and hear this well. Sometimes the next level of your work isn't about creating something new. It's about getting your message you've already carried in front of the right people. So through our media visibility experience here at the RoyalTEA Talk, we select guests that have an opportunity to share their expertise, share their book, share their story, their business, their ministry, and their message through a meaningful RoyalTEA Talk conversation and expand your visibility beyond the interview itself. So if you know your voice carries value and you're ready for more people to hear it, go ahead and send me an email. Send me an email at info@portiabasham.com and I will be happy to send all the information to you. So I will see you right here in the Royal Courts in a few minutes.
Want to elevate your leadership skills? Join our Christian Leadership Certification Program, covering team leadership, ministry counseling, financial management, and more. Advance your Christian leadership skills with an accredited certificate program from the esteemed partnership of Christian Bible Institute and Seminary. Visit portiabasham.com/Christian Leadership Certification. Register today and become the Christian leader you are destined to be.
So welcome back, and I'm super excited that you are here with us. Now we are going to take a look at the 4 points that we now could look at in going deeper as to whether or not we are going to allow our old version of ourselves to intervene into the new season of our lives. So point number 1, identify the role you learned to play. One of the things healing asks us to do is to identify the role we learned to play, because relationships have dynamics. Families, especially, they have dynamics. Maybe in your family, you became the responsible one. Everybody knew to call you. Call her, she'll handle it. And at first, being needed may have felt good. It may have been even made you feel valuable. And somewhere along the way, being capable became the clutches of carrying everything. And now you don't know how to put it down. Maybe you were the peacemaker. Everybody was fighting, so you learned how to read the room. You could sense tension before anyone said a word. You knew who was upset, who needed to calm down, who needed reassurance. And that ability may have served you well. But now you're an adult who walks into every room subconsciously asking, is everybody okay? And if somebody isn't, you feel responsible for fixing it. Or maybe you become the woman who needs nothing at all. You tell everybody, I'm good. I got it. Don't worry about me. But secretly, you're exhausted. A part of healing is realizing being strong and being unsupported are not the same thing. Being strong and being unsupported, they are not the same thing. Being loved and being abandoned are not the same thing. Come on, somebody. Being generous and tolerating unhealthy behaviors are not the same thing. So ask yourself today, who did I have to become to make the relationship work? Not who am I pretending to be? Because sometimes you weren't pretending to be abandoned. You weren't be pretending to adopt. You weren't pretending to learn. You weren't pretending to survive. But adopting for one season does not have to become the identity for every season. And once you identify that role, there is another question that you need to ask yourself. Why was it so hard to stop playing that role? Point number 2, what are you afraid will happen if you stop? What are you afraid of? What will happen if you stop being in that role? This one will sit differently because I think I need you to concentrate on that one, because underneath many of our relationship or rational patterns, there is a fear. People pleasing can sometimes be the fear of rejection. Over functioning can sometimes be a fear of losing control. Avoiding difficult conversations can sometimes be a fear of abandonment. And constantly rescuing people can sometimes be the fear that they don't need you, they won't choose you. So think about that for a minute. Sometimes we call something love when fear quietly is helping drive that behavior. You say, I'm just trying to help. Okay. But what happens inside you when you don't help? You say, I don't want them upset with me. Why? What do you believe this disappointment means will mean for you? You say, I just want everybody to get along. But what price are you paying to maintain that peace? And sometimes you have to stop and ask, why do I keep doing this? Ask, what am I afraid of will happen if I stop? What are you afraid of? Because some patterns don't survive because they're healthy. They survive because they once made you feel safe. And that, baby girl, that's what matters. Because you understand what the pattern was protecting. You can begin teaching yourself that you no longer need that pattern to survive. Point number 3, stop confusing familiarity with alignment. Stop confusing familiarity with alignment. Have you ever looked back over several relationships and thought, wait a minute, why does this keep happening? Different people, same feeling. Different situation, same role. Different relationship, same exhaustion. Need. And eventually you have to ask, what feels normal to me that should no longer feel acceptable? Because familiarity can be powerful. Sometimes what feels comfortable isn't healthy though. It's simply recognizable to you. You know how to function there. You know how to be the fixer there. You know how to chase there. You know how to rescue there. You know how to overgive in that situation. So healthy relationships may actually feel strange at first because they don't require you to perform a role that you have mastered. You don't have to chase. You don't have to prove. You don't have to constantly interpret mixed signals. You don't have to earn basic respect. Come on, my leading ladies. And sometimes peace feels unfamiliar when chaos has been familiar for a long time. So hear this and hear me with your good ear. Familiarity can feel like safety, even when it costs you your peace. And this is where we have to become very honest, because you can choose a different person and still recreate the same relationship. And if this happens repeatedly, the answer isn't shame. The answer is awareness. Because awareness gives you something powerful. It gives you a choice. So let us take one quick break before we talk about what actually is changing the pattern looks like. So if today's conversation is making you think differently about how you show up in relationships, I want to remind you that the same patterns often show up in leadership. How you manage your emotions, how you communicate under pressure, how you establish boundaries, how you make decisions, how you respond when people are disappointed with you. Leadership begins long before you lead a team. It begins with how you lead yourself. So that's the heart behind Lead Yourself First Leadership Workshop. It's an intensive leadership experience designed to help you, the professional, help you and your team, your organization strengthen self-awareness, communication, decision-making, confidence, and personal leadership. So if your organization is looking for leadership development that goes deeper than titles and technical techniques, you need to learn more about this upcoming First Lead Yourself workshop. So go ahead and send me an email at info@portiabasham.com, and we'll be happy to send you all the information for the next leadership workshop. I'll see you right here in the Royal Courts in a few minutes.
She's been watching, wondering, waiting for the sands of time to give way to a tide of change, when her seas can provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores, and her earthly embrace can soothe your soul. Let her sense of adventure set you free, and her everlasting stars twinkle in your honeymoon skies. She is Saint Lucia. Let her inspire you.
So welcome back. Here is where healing becomes practical. So point number 4, healing requires a new response. Because awareness is wonderful. You know your triggers. You can know your attachment patterns. You can journal about them. And you can highlight every quote on Instagram. But eventually, the old trigger is going to show up again. Someone will disappoint you. Someone will misunderstand you. Someone will ask you for something you don't have the capacity to give. Someone will become distant. Someone will not respond the way you hope they would. And that moment becomes an opportunity, because healing isn't only demonstrated by what you understand, but healing becomes visible in how you respond. So the old you might immediately start explaining, but new you pauses. The old you might have to apologize, saying, oh, no. But the new you understands that no does not require 5 paragraphs of an essay afterwards. The old you might have rushed to rescue everybody, but the new you can love them and still allow them to experience the consequences of their decisions. The old you might have stayed silent to keep the peace. Oh, but baby girl, the new you understand that healthy peace sometimes requires an uncomfortable conversation. The old you might chase reassurance, but the new you can tolerate uncertainty without abandoning yourself. And that, my little ladies, is healing. It's not perfection, not even being triggered. Not never feeling afraid, but responding differently when familiar moments arrive. So your healing becomes visible when old triggers meets your new responses. And somebody today needs to hear that. Maybe you're frustrated because you thought, I shouldn't feel this anymore. No, feeling something doesn't necessarily mean you haven't healed. So the question is, what are you doing with what you feel? Because the healed version of you may still feel disappointed. She just doesn't abandon herself because of it. You may feel rejected. She just doesn't choose somebody trying to convince them of her worth. She may feel afraid. She simply refuses to let fear make every decision. And baby girl, my little ladies, that's growth. And this brings us to today's royalty moment. So whoever or wherever you are, I want you to just sip on this for a moment. Your next season does not just need a different situation. It needs a healed version of you making different decisions. We spend so much time praying for new opportunities, new relationships, new doors, new seasons. And there is nothing wrong with wanting new. But sometimes the most important question isn't, God, when are you going to change my situation? Sometimes the prayer becomes, God, what are you trying to change in me before I walk into my next? Because you don't want your new relationship with old boundaries. Come on, my little ladies. You don't want a new opportunity with old insecurities. You don't want a new season with old coping mechanisms. You don't want a new people carrying the responsibility of healing the wounds they did not create. Your next season deserves your growth, not because you have to become perfect before good things come and happen for you, but because healing allows you to experience good things differently. Oh my God. So maybe moving forward isn't just about leaving something behind. Maybe it's about becoming someone who no longer needs the patterns that once protected. So before we close, here are 3 things that I want you to sip on for this week. Number 1, moving on changes your circumstances and healing changes your patterns. I'll repeat that for those in the back. Moving on, it changes your circumstances, but healing changes your patterns. Number 2, familiarity can feel like safety even when it costs you your peace. Familiarity can feel like safety even when it costs you your peace. And number 3, your healing becomes visible when old triggers meet new responses. Write those 3 down, because the next time the old trigger shows up, you have an opportunity to choose a new response. So somehow we begin. I want you to give you something simple so you know how to begin right. 3 words: notice, name, and choose. So the first thing is notice what patterns keep repeating. Not just what do other people keep doing to me? No, ask yourself, how do I repeatedly respond? Do I overexplain? Do I choose? Do I chase? Do I shut down? Do I rescue? Do I overgive? Do I avoid? Do I abandon my boundaries? Notice it without judging yourself. Then I want you to name it. What is underneath that pattern? Ask yourself, what am I trying to protect? What am I trying to prevent? What am I trying to prove? What am I trying to preserve? Am I trying to prevent rejection? Protect myself from conflict? Am I trying to prove that I'm worthy? Am I trying to preserve a relationship that I'm afraid to lose? Name the thing under the behavior. And finally, choose. What would a healthy response look like in the next time? Not someday, not next time. But when someone asks too much of you, what will you say, my leading ladies? When someone becomes disappointed, what will you remind yourself of? When you feel the urge to chase, what will you do instead? When somebody crosses a boundary, how will you respond? Healing becomes powerful when it moves from insight into practice. So you will notice, you will name, and you will choose. And here is another royalty question for you. I want you to sit with this one for a minute. What pattern from the old relationships are you still carrying? And who could you become if you finally stopped organizing your life around it? Not who would they become? Not what they would finally understand. Not whether they would apologize. No. Who could you become? So, at the beginning of our conversation, I asked you, what if the relationship ended, but the pattern didn't? And maybe today you realize that there are still some things you carrying, and that's okay. Because awareness isn't a reason to shame yourself. It's an invitation to choose differently, to love differently, to communicate differently, to establish boundaries differently, to show up differently. You don't have to erase the relationship. You don't have to pretend it doesn't matter. You don't even have to reject every version of yourself that existed there. That, my leading ladies, may have been doing the best she knew back then, how to do with what she knew at that time. But now, my leading ladies, now you know something different. And knowing differently gives you the opportunity to choose differently. Maybe moving forward isn't about becoming somebody completely new. Maybe it's about finally realizing the version of you that you no longer need to be. And maybe, or perhaps, that's what healing forward really looks like. Not pretending that the past didn't happen, but refusing to let that past keep deciding who you will become. So if there was a woman, listen, if there was a leading lady, if there was a lady that came to mind during this conversation, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your daughter, maybe it's a friend, maybe it's even a coworker, someone navigating an ending, someone adjusting to changing of family relationships, someone who keeps finding herself in the same pattern with different people, I want you to go ahead and share this episode with her. Not just send her a lecture, but send her the episode. Just send her this conversation, because sometimes healing begins with somebody finally giving language to something you've been feeling but you can't explain. So thank you for spending time with me here at the RoyalTEA Talk Podcast. Remember, around here, we're not interested in simply becoming busy versions of ourselves. We're becoming healthier. We're becoming wiser, more intentional. We are women who are willing to have the conversations that help us live, help us love, help us lead, and move forward differently. So I am your host, Dr. Portia Basham, and until our next cup of tea, protect your peace, honor your growth, give yourself the permission to heal. And I want you, my living ladies, to remember you are allowed to enter your next season without carrying everything from your last one. So until then, I will meet you right here for an honest conversation at the RoyalTEA Talk. I will see you next time in the Royal Courts. You take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the RoyalTEA Talk Show with your host, Portia Basham, the talk show and podcast designed for women who are looking to be inspired, motivated, and encouraged. We pray today's show was a blessing to you. Remember to tune in next time for your regular dose of encouragement and affirmation, so you can hear from other amazing women from all walks of life who share their stories and advice on everything from personal growth to living their dreams. So until next time, we look forward to seeing you to sip some tea, chat,